All right, fantastic. Another episode. John, thank you for jumping on the podcast today. Awesome to have you here, dude. Tell me a little bit about yourself, what you do, your background, all that good stuff.
Oh, my background's complicated. I work in Ecom now. I've been in Ecom now for like the last 7 years, but before that, it was school, then law school, then Startupville, a lot of sales-oriented stuff. And then I ran marketing for a company called Lifecycle for 3.5 years. We took them from sub 1 million to over 30 million, got them sold, and exited at 50 million. And then took a break, went back into consulting, largely with CMOs and CEOs on go-to-market strategy, and then stumbled upon a gap that would turn out to become FormToro, which is my current company, which does data collection and analytics for e-commerce companies.
Fantastic. And dude, you and I originally connected over LinkedIn over a sign-up form discussion that I really wanted to bring you on and have a chat with. So I think that's kind of what I want this actual podcast to be a focus on. I initially ran a split test on 2 sign-up forms, one incentivizing people to subscribe for a $1 off discount, and one for incentivizing people for a percentage off discount. Now, we ran these 2 tests, and it seems like the percentage off on desktop, off the top of my head, seemed to perform better. But then on mobile, the $1 off percentage seemed to perform better in regards to conversion rates of the sign-up form, as well as revenue generated from the email. But your response to that was break it down there, because my inference from that was, oh, okay, like people are responding differently based on the device that they're coming onto, and the success, however you want to define it, in the case that I was defining it, was subscription rates, was better for the $1 off on mobile compared to the desktop version.
Yeah, but we don't know where the traffic came from. So, I mean, like, really, if you want to think about like customer journey and taking a step back, people come from different places and they come at different parts of their journey. And the quality of the audience is largely going to determine what actions they take on the website. So essentially, you could split test as many things as you want, but if you're not split testing to a consistent audience from a consistent source, then you have dirty data, and dirty data doesn't really tell you anything. When it comes to comparing like a $1 off versus percentage, it's a really interesting kind of way to look at it, because $1 off, you would think, might sound like more to some people depending on where they are in their current journey, right? It depends on the price of the product, the AOV, and a whole bunch of stuff. Are they buying for the first time? Are they testing out a brand? If you're doing pop-ups, technically they should all be first-time buyers, but that's not always the way that it works out. I mean, statistically, about 25% of people that are signing up for those things have already signed up before, so they're just double dipping on an offer. How do you baseline against that? How do you normalize that? It's really, really hard to do that and to see, you know, how people are taking advantage of stuff. But ostensibly, if you look at it, where that person came from, where they're in their journey, is going to determine whether or not their likelihood to convert is going to be, or anything else relating to that. And we don't really have any controls for that.
Right. So if you were to say like a perfect test, then if you were to actually be split testing the incentive for the pop-up, then
Yeah.
you'd be doing it in a larger holistic view of things, where you're actually syncing up your ad strategy, traffic sources, and divvying it up that way. Is that correct?
Or super narrow, actually, and just do one campaign to one ad set, one ad, and then drive them to one landing page, and then split test on that landing page. And then you'd at least have some degree of idea that there was a full customer journey from a product being advertised to a landing page being hit to an offer being presented from that condensed audience that Facebook or whoever else has identified as being similar enough and likely to purchase.
Yeah, right. So in lieu of being able to do that, right? Because I guess like people who are listening to this, they're either, you know, small to medium businesses doing under, you know, $10 million in sales a year. Same goes for the agencies as well, right? So a lot of the times you'll get agencies, myself included, right, who like operate in a pocket where it's, you know, we're not syncing up the ad strategy, and 100% like maybe we should, but in lieu of being actually able to do that, like, are you saying like kind of just disregard the split testing then and optimizing?
I mean, what are you optimizing for?
Conversions, I'd say. Yeah, subscriber list growth.
Okay, but there's two different things you talked about. You talked about dollar off versus percentage. Okay,
Yeah,
when you do a dollar off, though, someone has to hit a certain threshold on their cart, right, for the dollar off to take over.
sure. Uh-huh.
Okay, let's assume that you're giving me $10 off and I need to spend $50, right?
Yeah.
What's my incentive for spending more than $50?
Sorry, could you repeat that one more time?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So you're giving me $10 off,
Hmm.
but I have to have a minimum spend of $50. I
Hmm.
can't do like a $12 purchase. You give me $10 off. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't make any sense,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
So let's say that you say, "Hey, John, you got $10 off, but you got to spend $50." And I say, "Okay, great. I have zero incentive to spend more than $50 on that purchase."
Right.
Okay, let's do the same thing. You're going to give me a percentage off. The average AOV is, let's say it's $50 too. And, it'd be 20% off would be the equivalent of $10 off, right? So you're running a 20% off versus a $10. If I spend more than $50 and I have percentage off, does it benefit me as a customer?
Hmm.
Okay, so you're artificially capping an AOV at a threshold of $50. Why would
Mm.
you do that? So what you're split testing for is overall revenue generation and sign up rate and a whole bunch of things. But what you don't know is that there's biases built into the way that that study goes. That says, as me as a customer, I have zero incentive in my customer journey to spend more than the minimum amount in order to get the maximum benefit.
Sure. But couldn't you say on the flip side of that as well, though? Like it actually encourages people to actually get to that minimum?
Sure, but if they don't purchase, you lose either way, right?
Sure. But like, couldn't you also say like, okay, well, somebody would typically be like, all right, I'm going to spend $20, but the $10 off discount encourages them to spend up to 50.
Sure. All right. Let's do this because this is where it gets really interesting. All right. So you have the contention that you need them to spend at least $50 for them to be a good customer. Them on the customer journey side of things, because that's the company journey. The company journey says, hey, this needs to be a worthwhile person for us. So in order for us to run this deal and offer, they need to spend X amount with us. Okay, cool. So what you're essentially saying is, if your lowest price product is $50, congrats. So that'll probably work. It's like a one-to-one trade. You'll be fine. But what if the product that I want isn't that, and I only want to try one because I'm brand new to your company because there's a million other companies out there like yours? Are you actually preventing me from making my first purchase?
Mm,
Because you're dangling an incentive and I can't take advantage of that incentive.
right. I see what you're saying. Hmm.
So the
So you're
goal
saying
of,
it's like a barrier to like getting them into the ecosystem of the
yeah.
company, essentially.
So if you look at the straight data on this, if someone signs up for something, you have about 30 days really to convert them. Most people convert in the first 7 to 14 days. 90% of people that are going to subscribe and convert do so in that time period. Okay. So of those people that you send out campaigns to down the road, 90% of your revenue is going to end up coming directly from people that have already purchased and experienced your product. So when you look at this, like in terms of broad strategy, your goal as a marketer, email, whatever, pop-ups, ads, is to get product in hand. If someone does not experience product in hand, they cannot ascertain a value to what their perceived value of that product is, and they can't experience it. They can't have a good experience. They won't buy more. It's just that simple. Our goal as marketers isn't necessarily to maximize every single order on the way through. It's to maximize the amount of product that gets into hands because there's too much competition these days.
Do you experiment with lost leaders then a lot of the times?
It's not so much loss leaders as much as it is understanding all the unit economics that go into prepping an offer and understanding what the numbers balance out to. I don't think anyone, and this came up, and I saw this posted the other day, and I laughed out loud at it. Someone said, "Oh, it turns out the data shows that you really need to be profitable on your first order." It's like, no shit. Of course, you have to be profitable on your first order. That's how you build a business. Lost leaders is kind of something that people latched onto when acquisition was really cheap, and it was something that could be managed. Can't be managed anymore. There's too many competitors in the market. Everyone's competing with themselves, and they're competing with Temu and everyone else who just got slapped with a lawsuit over, I think, privacy regulations. They're subsidizing the cost of all the goods to mine data. Like,
Right. Okay. I'm sorry. Like, what do you mean by can't be managed anymore, though? Like, can you break that down a little bit more?
yeah, you can't manage, you can't control CAC. Like, you can do some things to control the cost to acquire a customer.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing you can do on the retention side to bring someone back. Like, there really isn't. I mean, retention doesn't exist in the way that people traditionally think it does. If I don't have a need, the timing's not right, and I didn't have a good perceived value with your product, I'm not buying any more of it. There's only
But let's
so
say
many.
but what's like the counter argument to saying, like, let's say we did have all that stuff, we're just trying to give you a more compelling offer to get you into that bubble in the first place.
Which level?
What do you mean? Sorry.
So you said, are you referring to acquisition or retention?
Yeah, acquisition. So let's say you have acquisition, your product hits all those points,
Yeah.
and perfect, right? But just to have that competitive edge to lower the cost of acquisition from like a ad spend, you just create like a kick-ass offer, which is like a $1 XYZ product.
Oh, we play with those all the time. I mean, you're going to play with them, but you still have to be profitable on that. So it's not even a matter of that specific offer being profitable. Then you're factoring in all first-time buying and AOVing against what your offer is so that you can counteract it. We played a lot with kind of what you can do. At the lowest, we were able to get our cost per acquisition down to around like $8 per on an AOV of around $40-50. So I mean, as long as you have your multiples right, it works out. But I'm telling you, like over the last, I want to say 2 years, when the boom happened with COVID, what you're seeing is brands that were able to get started, get a foothold, and now there's way more brands that are competing in the same space. When you have more people that are competing in the same space, the only ones that are really winning are Facebook and Google. You're just competing against similar brands, and there is no product differentiation anymore. There's preferences within that, but pretty much everyone's selling the same stuff.
And so where do you think the emphasis comes? Is it just down to brand rather than?
I used to think it was brand, but the natural progression for a lot of companies is they start off with a really good product, and then over time, that brand actually deteriorates because they have to cut corners to become profitable. So, I mean, I've experienced a lot of the reverse where there was a brand that first comes on the market, they build a really good product, it's differentiated, it's great. And then over time, the bean counters come in and they say, hey, this isn't as profitable as we need to. We should use this lower quality materials or et cetera, reduce our cost per piece. And, you're fighting over literally pennies most of the time, 50 cents to $1 per unit in terms of savings, but the overall quality of it drops.
And you see like just the degradation of the business as a result of that.
Yeah, I mean, when the unit economics don't make sense in the beginning, people get themselves into holes. And when you get yourself into a hole, you try to dig out of it, but you dig out of it usually by going as cheaply as possible in order to maintain that existing brand that you have and build that volume. Because you never want to be the highest price, you never want to be the lowest price. The golden is to be right in the middle and move more volume to make up for the profit margin piece. But it's getting harder and harder to do. I mean, if you think about the largest brands in the last 5-10 years, a lot of them are celebrity backed.
Yeah. I want to circle back a little bit. You said 90% of revenue comes from existing purchasers. Is that right?
Yeah, on most campaigns, you can see this. When you run a campaign and you split by your segment of haven't purchased and have purchased, you're going to see the vast majority of revenue coming from people that have purchased.
Do you, you said largely the segments that haven't purchased after, what was it, 30 days? Was that what it was? Or
around 30 days, yeah.
For the most part are gone. They're not going to purchase.
Unless you give them a huge sale.
Right. And so do you have any strategies for getting them in other than sales, or is it more or less just, hey, let them go?
It's either going to be a sale or a new product offering for the most part. There's only a couple of types of campaigns that actually work. A new product, a sale, company update, and then kind of like the fourth one would be customer spotlight, where someone doesn't see themselves directly in the brand based on the content on the website, and they see themselves in something that's shared from a brand that more relates to who they are as a person and their lifestyle.
Okay. Now, so that's interesting. That's useful. And I think when it comes to, getting that second purchase, do you think a lot of it comes down to the marketing side of things, or is it actually just the person's experience with the initial purchase in the first place?
I don't think it has anything to do with the marketing. Marketing is just a means of getting in front of someone, hoping that your timing is right. The only way that you can pull a lever in order to speed up someone's timing is if you give them a deal or a sale that is not something that they usually get access to. It's a time-oriented thing. You can speed up time, but it's perceived value that makes sense. Let's say I buy the first product at full price from you. Let's go with like t-shirt. I spend like $25 on this t-shirt, which is more than I'd ever spend on a t-shirt, but I spent it anyway, right? And it's really great. I love the material. There's only two things that people say when they're talking about their stuff to their friends. Oh, I got a great deal on this, or this was really expensive but totally worth it. Ideally, you want to be in the second category, but they've already preferenced it with it was really expensive and totally worth it, which means if there's a sale on it, they're more likely to purchase more. So when you're looking at kind of figuring out where everything falls, if I purchased the first time and I don't need any more t-shirts, let's say I'm full up on t-shirts, what's the only motivating factor that you can do for me? Move the price to something where all of a sudden it becomes too good of a deal for me to pass up, and then I'm going to replace one of my existing t-shirts with this t-shirt that I think was totally worth the price. But at the same time, I'm already factoring in that there's so much margin baked into that, and most of that margin is being paid into Facebook and other things that, for me as a marketer, I'm cynical, right? Like, I know that the reason why goods cost a lot of money is the marketing expenses that go along with the distribution of said products today. There isn't anything worth really the price that people are charging for it anymore.
Yeah, and then do you recommend then just baking the? I mean, clothes do this all the time, right? Where it's like they have a margin that's actually healthy even at sale, right?
Yeah.
Is that how you recommend people position a lot of their pricing? Just to be like, hey, try and be profitable at the sale price. And any, like, if I were to think about it, like any sales that you make at full price is like a, hell yeah, awesome.
100%. Like, I mean, we switched on one of our brands earlier this year. We did just automatic volume pricing, mix and match, no questions asked. You buy 3 of something, you're going to get a discount. You buy more than 3 of something, you're going to get a discount. Like, because that's the customer wants to get a discount when they're buying multiple of a product. They want to feel like there's something in it for them where it's an even trade of, oh, if I buy more, I'm going to save more. Sweet. Okay. So just bake it in. I mean, if you look at a lot of ecom, what a lot of people do is they start putting together their bundles and they put sales and offers on bundles, and the bundle has a lower price, but you can't use coupon codes on it or whatever people have set up, or maybe you do and you're getting hit double time on that. Like, the whole model that we have and we've been using in a lot of ecom just doesn't make any sense. It's not aligned to the customer journey. It's been aligned to the company journey. And the company journey says, I want a higher AOV, so I'm going to bundle these products together and charge a little less for them in order to make that happen. The customer doesn't want to be confined to purchasing 1 or 2 different items or having to take advantage of whatever bundle a company sets up. And in the ideal situation, you and I go to a store and you say, I like this brand. I want to buy like 5 items. Are they going to give me a deal on 5 items? How do I get a deal on 5 items? Or am I going to wait to it for a sale and buy an individual item or a couple items that go on massive sale? So if you think about it from the company perspective, the company says, I want to dictate what goes on sale and what deals I can offer. But that changes the ebbs and flows of what profit looks like, because then it turns into sale periods where they're making all of their money. What if you didn't do that? Like, this is kind of a constructive argument for not doing that. What if you just had built-in margins and built-in discounts at volume across your entire store? You wouldn't have the ebbs and flows of sales. You would just have progressive growth in a straight linear line that makes sense because you're building for an existing experience that's there and present every single day of the year.
Where do you think loyalty programs come into the mix here, right? Because it seems like these are almost what we're quasi talking about, right? Without like the need to opt into a program or anything like that. Spend X, get points for next, that kind of thing.
I've never been a fan of loyalty programs. I think they make sense for marketplaces. I do not think they make sense for individual brands. It's the same thing as like a brand trying to build a community around itself. It's really, really tough to do. Brands would be better off building a community around the lifestyle and not just trying to hawk product all the time. It just doesn't make sense. Not today.
Is difficulties being like what? Just getting buy-in from people, or?
So if you look at the spread, and we ran a really long test on this, like really, really, really long test. We ran a 1-year test where on our pop-up forms, if you signed up, you would get 20% off on your first 6 purchases in the year. And
Mhm.
this was done on purpose. We didn't run sales on the websites. There was no magic sales offsetting stuff. It was like, if you want a discount, you can sign up on our pop-up and you can get it. And you can use that same code up to 6 times in a year. And we're going to see what happens. Statistically speaking, 2 times was the max used beyond 1.
Mhm.
And that's the way it breaks down for most e-commerce companies. Of those that used it more than that, like less than 2%. So if you're starting to like think really hard about how many people actually come back, you're catering to an extremely small percentage of people that are going to come back and shop multiple times over there.
Sorry, when you say used, is that people not coming back to purchase for a second or third time, or is it people just forgetting the code and not using it?
No, it was put out in every single email correspondence that they had.
Right. Okay. And so it's really then, well, what was the result of that study? Sorry, was it just increased buy-in, better data, more database, or?
No, so when everyone in ecom runs cyclical sales,
Mm-hmm.
when you run zero cyclical sales, zero sales,
Mm-hmm.
and the only way to get a discount on anything is tied into a sign up, tied into a value exchange, right? An action. You get clean data as to when those things are used and what time periods. So you're not influencing time periods by chasing people with sales. The biggest
Mm-hmm.
problem that people have in ecom is that so a show of intent, let's say call it signing up to first purchase 30, 45 days absolute max. And that's from my days of working with like Google and Amazon. They had this down to a science. They knew if someone expressed interest, they had 45 days to close them on that product. If not, it wasn't likely to happen, right? So I sign up. First 30 days, I don't purchase. Maybe it stretches out to 45. We're talking like fractions of a percent of conversion at that point. Once I make my first purchase, a 90-day timer starts. So my 90-day timer starts. If I do not purchase in 90 days, my odds of purchasing a second time drop precipitously all the way down again. So if you want to think about the customer journey start to finish, it is legit the first sign of intent that matters the most. And that starts a 30-day timer. And then after that first purchase, it starts a 90-day timer. And that's basically it. Unless there's a massive sale, another product launch, or something miraculous that someone needs in their life, the odds of them coming back and purchasing is very, very slim. But to your point, like getting that second sale is really what you're going after. So if there's such a big drop off for that first sale, and then there's a huge drop off after that second sale, like how do we effectively plan for building customer journeys that hit that in a better way? The most successful brands at doing this typically do staged drops. They're always dropping something new. They'll bring in inventory and then they'll sit on inventory for a month and just pay the fees so that they can just slowly stretch it out. If we bring in a new product and it comes out in 4 colors, do you want to drop all 4 colors at the same time, or do you want to drop 2 at a time? Do you want to drop 1 at a time? Do you want to do a stage launch every week to, gussy it up, get people familiar with the new products there, and then, oh, it's not the right color for me, but now I'll put it in there and it's, oh, that is the right color. I want that. That's fire, right? Like that's kind of like the right model to go on for ecom right now. It's not can't be done the same way. There's no urgency to do anything anymore. If you want to think about that, like Nike, good example. Nike still does like limited releases of colorways. And that's how they make the majority of their hype and their money and all the extra like shoes showing up on the secondary market. And all that is because they regulate what they send out and how they drop stuff.
Yeah, I've seen that work really well with another apparel brand that I manage, and it's literally they've got in thousands of dollars of stock, and they're just releasing it in stages, and
Yep.
the stages build hype for the next stage, the next stage, the next stage. You mentioned that 30-day, 90 days. Is that regardless of the industry, regardless of the space? I mean, some items typically have like a life cycle of, let's say, 180 days. Do you think, like, if it's like, for example, a product, let's just say a toothbrush that has a life cycle of 180 days, right?
Yeah.
The marketing efforts to get them, or whatever, let's speak email, the efforts that you have to make to kind of get them back into the circle, is that at that point the exact same or very similar to just trying to encourage a first purchase then?
It is really similar. Essentially, I mean, someone that say the life cycle is 180 days. If I don't like it, it's probably going in the trash within like 10, right?
Mhm.
Like you can't control that. I think one of the hardest things for marketers to realize is they can't actually control the end experience with the product. And I debated with a lot of people on this, and a lot of people say, oh, it's about the unboxing experience. It's not about the unboxing experience. I don't buy a product for the boxing that it comes in. I buy a product to do what I want it to do. If it holds up to what I want to do and I have a good high perceived value in it, sweet, I'm gonna be good to go. If not, like, where does that really leave me? It happens to do with the product and how often you're going to use that product after purchasing and how frequently you use that product. If I wear something like this sweater, right? I wear this sweater probably like every day since I got it. Its perceived value is massive. It feels like the cheapest thing I've owned now. And I had a cashmere hoodie beforehand. It was the same deal. Like expensive, yes, but how much did I wear it? Probably like over 400 days in a row. Like perceived value is nothing at that point because the use is there. There's other stuff that we buy and we don't use them very often, or we don't have a reason to use them. If I buy like a ski jacket and I don't go up skiing and I live in California and the weather's perfect all the time, like what's my perceived value of that item? I probably overspent on that item just simply because I'm not using it as much as I should be. Can you hit someone timing right? Maybe. I think there's certain consumables that you can hit people timing right based on past behaviors and product buying, but you're still pretty much guessing within a range for the majority of people. And then you're making an assumption that they had a good experience with the product.
Yeah, I guess like my thing would be perceived value. It would vary from product to product, right? Because across like a few levels, right? Like obviously there's like the utilitarian use of X, Y, Z does what I need it to do, right? But there's also like that, I mean, that's where brand I think comes into the equation too, where it's like the if you tell somebody something's worth a lot, they perceive it as therefore being more valuable, right? We look at a gold coin and we say, oh, cool, gold coin worth $1, or somebody says it's a collector's item worth $10,000, right? The value, I think, doesn't always necessarily collate to the straight use case. And that's why I'm trying to dive a little bit deeper into like the industry, like the specific industry, because
true, there's collectibles markets and stuff like that where value is detached from the actual underlying value because it becomes a secondary marketplace that drives the value of an item.
But I would say the same with like limited releases of things, right? Like limited releases of clothes, limited release of any kind of product. It's
100%. I mean, Supreme did a really good job of doing that. There's other brands that have done a good job of playing that up. Like I said, I think most brands should take that approach straight up. Like I do. Everyone wants to be everything to everyone, and that's just not. It's not the case. Most brands would be better off just being really good at one thing and then releasing different editions of that to their audience and bolstering excitement through those editions that they drop.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, fantastic. Well, John, thanks so much for hopping on, man. I really appreciate it. Where can people find out more about you?
You can find me at LinkedIn, just John Ivanco. You can search me. There's not that many of us with the last name. Also, johnivanco.com. And also find our company FormToro at formtoro.com.
All right, fantastic, man. Thanks for hopping on, and we'll have all your links down in the description as well. Cool, man.
Thanks, Kevin.